I hear these. I got 6 kids, 5 teenagers, and a husband, and it's like I don't know that they're that funny because I think there's a lot of shots taken at men that are like unwarranted. I also think there's a lot of shots taken at women that are unwarranted. But there's this almost this cultural hypnosis of the Ed husband, that guy that just kind of like sits on the couch with his hand kind of tucked in his pants, drinking a beer, watching TV, yelling for his wife to like bring his slippers. And I kind of don't know many men that are actually like that. I think that there's a little cultural hypnosis that men are bums and that their women just get bossed around. And I think that takes a little jab at that. And right now I've got a list of these marriage jokes. Like, you know how sometimes people like, they say things like, oh, she's my old ball and chain, and they mean it as a joke, but then everybody in the room, it's kind of cringy. Well, there's a whole list of here. Some of these are really funny. Some of them are really cringy. And I thought I would just do a rundown because I want you to maybe hear how some of these sound, and maybe some of you have even used some of these to lighten things up at a party or to at dinner with your spouse. You thought it would be funny and it kind of fell flat, and so this might give you an opportunity to understand why. Marriage is like going to a restaurant. You order what you want, then you see what the other person has, and you wish you had ordered that. That's cringy. Did you feel that? It's like order what you want, and then there's this notion that you're looking around jealous or thinking, maybe the grass is greener over there. I don't know what spouse would feel really good about you saying that as a way to lightening things up at a dinner party with friends. It's almost like you're making light of like not being happy where you're at, not building and lifting where you stand. And so watch out for those. Watch out for the cringy ones that kind of leave a spouse maybe feeling a little bit slighted, a little bit disrespected. You want to always build each other up. Like this whole idea of like creating this sentiment of adoration, super important in a marriage. Now, I'm trying my hardest not to like take myself too serious as a marriage counselor. But I do see at dinner parties and I see at like gatherings where there's always one person that thinks it's a little bit funny to make jokes at their partner's expense, at their wife's expense or their husband's expense. And it might come off funny once or twice if they both kind of like tease each other and give a little give and take. But when it becomes like he's that person or she's that person, they become people you want to avoid. And I think you've all been there. I think you've all had that person in your life. So there's just some feedback for you. Again, don't like take it too far, but just wonder, what kind of guy are you, or what kind of person are you as a woman? Do you create this idea of adoration and build up, or is there kind of a negative undertone or a negative sentiment? When a newly married man looks happy, we know why. But when a 10-year married man looks happy, we wonder why. I see the humor. I see what they're trying to do. They're making this joke that there's a lot of research that says in the first 7 to 9 years, some of the connection and the power of the intimacy is diminished. Then by about year 19, you start to lose connection because you think you know each other so well, you stop communicating with each other. So I think that it's kind of taking a jab at that. Now, if it brings awareness to like, oh no, am I that 10-year married guy that doesn't look super happy? Or am I happy and people are wondering what are we doing right? I hope you're the couple that you're married 38 years and you're still doing cartwheels. You still have little butterflies when your lover walks in the room. If you're that person, then everybody's going to wonder, okay, what do they got that we want? What do we have next? Love is one long, sweet dream, and marriage is the alarm clock. You see a little bit of a pattern happening here. It's almost like there's this sentiment that marriage is the kind of the dampener of love. So when you read these, here's what I want you to do. Or when you're not reading them, I'm reading them. But when you hear these jokes, or when you're out at dinner, if you hear one like love is one long sweet dream and marriage is the alarm clock, it's almost like saying, well, you're going to wake up and realize you're not in love. I want you to like counter that by saying, every time I wake up, I feel blessed that I'm in love. Like throw a little sweet jab in there that your wife will pick up as like a positive sentiment to the marriage. And that'll start to turn the dinner party a different direction. So kind of watch for that. Let's see what we got on page 2. We've got a bunch of pages of these. These are things that I think all of you have heard. We've all like been around where people have told these jokes, and I'm just curious what your reaction is. You can leave it in the comment section. You can like let me know that you thought I wasn't funny. You can let me know that I'm taking it too serious, or you can just agree with me and you can give your own thoughts too. The man approached the very beautiful woman in the large supermarket and asked, "You know, I've lost my wife here in the supermarket. Can you talk to me for a couple of minutes?" "Why?" she asks. "Because every time I talk to a beautiful woman, my wife appears out of nowhere." That's a little bit funny. That's a little bit funny. Again, you got to have the right attitude. And if you're the person that's telling that kind of like a little bit of a going sideways in your marriage joke, you can't do this nonstop. You can lighten things up. You can have a little playfulness back and forth. Just don't find yourself having a string of these that's all you tell is jokes that kind of put down marriage just a little bit or make fun of like maybe disloyalty just a little bit. Marriage is full of surprises is the next one. But it's mostly just axing each other. Now you know I'm from Idaho, because in Idaho we don't say ask, we say axe. And I'm not going to make fun of Idaho people very much because I am an Idaho person. I have the right to make that joke. But here we are. Marriage is full of surprises, but it's mostly just asking each other, "Do you have to do that right now?" That one's funny. I can picture that because there's times where like I'll be jiggling, like, and I don't even know I'm doing it. And I think, say we're in, the last time this happened, we were in church, and the bench that we're sitting on that has like 8 other people, evidently it was moving just a little bit because I was jiggling so much. And it's just not nerves or anything, just like I had a little nervous energy, I guess, and I was just jiggling. And my wife's going, "Do you have to do that?" And I'm thinking, oh, cringy. But it was a good point. She had a good point. That was a little bit funny. And I can picture we have that kind of stuff all the time. This one's from Irma Bombeck. That name sounds familiar. I can't remember who that is. She says, "People are always asking couples whose marriages have endured at least a quarter of a century for their secret of success. Actually, it's no secret at all. I'm a forgiving woman. Long ago, I forgave my husband for not being Paul Newman." Okay, that's a little cringy. I get the point. This is like you probably got to be born before the 1960s to understand the joke of who all these players are in there. So Paul Newman was like this handsome kind of like guy in the movies, and she forgave her husband for not being this handsome guy in the movies. And just since then, it's been a wonderful marriage. Have you ever noted that there's generally a crowd of people, and there's always somebody or maybe 2 or 3 couples? In one of our friend groups, it's a pretty large group that we do stuff with on Sundays. It's our faith group, and in there's probably, I want to say, 30 couples that have been married over 50 years. I might be off a little bit, but just a lot of long-time married couples. And the secret to their success, I think all of them would say, is shared faith and shared vision, like this really clear shared purpose of what they're searching for, what they're reaching for together. And so they're each whole people, but they have this idea of what they're sharing or what they're reaching for. And I think that I've heard that enough that that's probably one of the keys to a long-term happy marriage. Top of this next page, this one, I'm just already caught a tiny bit of it. "Wife," she says, "our new neighbor always kisses his wife when he leaves for work. Why don't you do that?" So I'm assuming she's saying that to her husband, like, our new neighbor, I see him always kissing his wife when he's on his way to work. And then she asks her husband, "Why don't you do that?" Husband says, "Well, how can I do that? I don't even know her." All right. You got to admit, that's funny. That's funny. It's a little cringy on the, like, talking about sneaking around, but it's like, I can just picture this couple. Chris and I lived in this neighborhood, like, decades ago. I want to say this is, like, 2 years into our marriage, and I'm working all the time because we're trying to keep her to be a home mom because that was her goal and her fantasy. And so I'm working like literally 2 jobs at the same place. So I work full-time, then another part-time at the same place as a interning counselor. And there's this guy, Greg, that lived up the street. And I came home late one night from work. It's about 8 o'clock. And she's like, says, "Oh, saw Greg, and he was out in the yard at 3 o'clock this afternoon tossing a ball with his boy. He's just like the perfect husband." And I don't know if she realized how that sounded to me after working like 14 hours and coming home just dead tired. Because I'm thinking Greg's got like, what, does he work part-time? Is he a bum? And she's thinking how cute that is, that he's out there throwing the ball. And so the joke for the next 30 years is like, well, if I was Greg, the perfect husband, and she goes, I didn't mean it that way. And I know she didn't mean it as a jab. She was just talking about how cute the little neighbor guy was out there tossing them. It didn't help that the guy was like super handsome. But I just remember feeling like, oh, all right, so I work 14 hours. He's got time to toss the ball. That makes him perfect. And I didn't get the perfect comment. Well, she made sure that after that, I got lots of compliments. So it was well made up for. But I kind of get that that's how some of these are looking. So the next one, husband says, why do you keep reading our marriage license? Wife says, I'm looking for an expiration date. Now, I'm going to run the assumption that she hoped there was no expiration date. But I guess when you see a license for your car, or see a license for like my therapy license, you see like all these licenses, they have like a couple of years, then you have to renew them. What would that be like? Think about it. Why don't we renew our vows why don't we say every 3 years we renew our vows? Would that increase divorce, or would that increase like this idea of let's stay on our toes, let's stay putting time and effort into the marriage, because every 3 years we have to prove up? I think there's something to that we ought to explore. I don't know if there's a research out there on that, but I'm sure curious. Whenever my wife packs me a salad for lunch, all I want to know is what I did wrong. Oh, all right. It took me a second. So she packs him. I'm thinking, well, that's nice of her to pack your lunch. And I think, well, my wife packs my lunch. I feel kind of blessed that she does that. But he's going like, why do I just get a salad? He wonders if he's being punished for something. That's not really a funny one. I get the joke. Yeah, not unserious, but probably not funny. Here's another one. At every party, there are two kinds of people. I think I know where this one's going. Can you see where this one's going? At every party, there's two kinds of people. Those who want to go home and those who don't. The trouble is they're usually married to each other. I've been lucky. Chris and I are both we're pretty social for about 12 minutes. And I don't mean that rude at all. I just mean like we like time alone together. We both work pretty hard. We're still in that kind of phase of our life. And there's times where we'll go to a big gathering and it's like, and honestly, especially if like our kids' age group is involved, because for some reason they start things at 8. 8 o'clock, I'm usually brushing my teeth and getting ready for bed. By 9 o'clock, I'm like, my eyes are starting to droop, and by 9:30, I'm out. So if a party starts at 8 and we're not out by 8:20, I'm starting to think, I'm not going to get any sleep tonight. The only one of your children who does not grow up and move away is your husband. So I get the joke. That's funny. Yeah, and I think there's a lot of jokes about, I hear these, I got 6 kids, 5 teenagers and a husband. And it's like, I don't know that they're that funny, because I think there's a lot of shots taken at men that are like unwarranted. I also think there's a lot of shots taken at women that are unwarranted. But there's almost this cultural hypnosis of the Ed husband, that guy that just kind of like sits on the couch with his hand kind of tucked in his pants, drinking a beer, watching TV, yelling for his wife to like bring his slippers. And I kind of don't know many men that are actually like that. I think that there's a little cultural hypnosis that men are bums and that their women just get bossed around. And I think that takes a little jab at that. It's a little bit funny, but it's a little bit cringy too. So be wary of that. How about, I always wanted to marry Mrs. Right, but I didn't know her first name was Always. So cultural hypnosis. Like, yeah, happy wife, happy life. I hate that saying, by the way, happy wife, happy life. It feels like there's no partnership. It's like, okay, I've got to like make sure that I like hide who I really am. I got to cover everything, make sure that she's always happy, even if behind her back I'm doing this other stuff or thinking this other stuff. See, there's no partnership there. So be careful of the cultural hypnosis that it's like she's always right and she's always got to get her way, or happy wife, happy life, and he's always on the couch just kind of slouched down screaming for a beer. None of that's actually true. I think that there's a little bit of that out there, but I don't think very many people are actually like that. So we can have a good laugh at it, but make sure that's not the only tone of your jokes. So lots of these on the internet, lots of these at every dinner party. Here's my challenge. My challenge to you is never create an energy in the room of negativity towards your spouse. Like, you can be playful. I get it. Be playful. I'm not a stick in the mud that way. Be playful, but make sure you spend a lot more time commenting on your spouse's intelligence, your adoration for their gifts, the things that they bring to the table. And again, do lots of playful stuff, do lots of flirting, do lots of healthy banter, but pack all around it. Make sure you recognize their strengths. There's nothing more horrible at a party or a dinner party or a group or gathering when there's somebody putting their spouse down and they're making a joke of their spouse and they just keep going and the room gets a little bit quieter and it gets a little bit more uncomfortable, a little bit more awkward. And you can tell that the wife or husband's trying to be a good sport, but you can also tell that this isn't funny anymore. So read the room, do tons of build-up, do tons of positive sentiment, recognize their strengths, and then also flirt, also have some banter, and you'll do just fine. So there's my feedback for you. We'll see you next time. Be sure to check out this link. It's a video called How to Flirt with Your Spouse. It'll give you clear instructions. It's really fun. Give it a look.